on your
Okay.
participant list.
All right, hit it.
More and make host.
I'll
Yeah,
hit
that's
it.
another thing. This thing moves.
And put what now?
Do you see make host?
Yes.
Click that for Ken Smith.
Okay.
All right, Ken, take us live.
Oh, I'm doing it. Here we go.
All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Tuesday, December the 8th agenda session. I now call this meeting to order. And I guess we need to have approval of the minutes from our last agenda session.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, with no objections from the council, the minutes will stand as recorded. We have a couple of items on ordinances of first reading, and if the council doesn't mind, Councilman Ledford, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I have a case. Let me make sure. Case number.
Well, hold on. We're under finance and administration right now.
Sorry.
Last week, I had asked Ms. Sullivan to give us some information on COVID-related expenses that we have incurred since the pandemic. And she did send out a list, and I think everyone has received that now. And it may need a little bit of explanation. So Karen, who's bringing people in? Karen? Okay, Karen, would you bring in maybe Ms. Sullivan and bring in Ms. Madison?
Good afternoon.
Hi, Ms. Sullivan.
Hello, sir.
How are you today?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
Okay, who would like to explain the little graph or the chart that you sent us?
How about if I get started and then hand off to the much more capable Daisy Madison?
Okay.
Thanks. So the chart that I shared with y'all that finance staff and our grants specialist, Chelsea Sadler, have put together. It has lines that are specific to, this is all the monies and all the expenditures that we have received and have spent related to COVID. And so it has things on there like you'll see on the first line, economic, if you look at cost center description, it has economic and community development capital projects, law enforcement justice assistance grants, governor's local support grants, early Head Start, et cetera, on down the line. You see that we've gotten money from lots of different resources, and that we've spent money from different areas to be able to address the pandemic and the needs of our community. And then for a bottom line, and then going across, you can see what the award grant amount was, where you see it says NA, not applicable. That is because that expenditure line, that dollar, that cost center did not have it's not a grant award. It was where we were spending money from related to pandemic spending. But then further down, going on down the line, you see what grant award amounts we did receive, what the spending has been. So encumbrances, so what we are in the process of spending, writing checks for, expenditures, what has actually been paid out, and what the remaining balances are. And that remaining balance line, that was one of the things that Chairman Henderson, that you asked me, looking at that remaining balance, you immediately, I mean, it says $4 million. Are we $4 million in the hole? And the answer to that is no. And that's where I'm going to hand off to Daisy to help further explain where we are with our spending. And Daisy, you are up. And you're muted, Daisy.
I start with the $4 million that Mara just referenced. that number would be quite the opposite because it would be, it shows commitments of 8, and that would be $4.6 million of monies that have not been spent. So that would be in the opposite direction. And that is because we have included in this chart a lot of grants, and all of those grants have not been fully 100% spent. So as we move forward, to the extent that additional COVID type expenditures qualify under the grant, we will be spending money from those grants. And to the extent that they don't qualify, we would be spending from other sources. Is there another specific question? Because Mara pretty much explained the chart is pretty much grant driven, and the balances will show the balance on the grants. The dollars that are not grant driven are pretty much the last 2 items plus the first item.
Let me go to questions and maybe we can get some clarity here. Councilwoman Burrs.
Yeah. So I'm not sure I'm asking this correctly, but am I to understand that everything we've spent was covered by grants, so that the only thing that isn't covered by grants are the figures you just mentioned, and those are to be covered by what?
Okay, the figures I just mentioned that's not covered, I didn't mention figures. The 4.6 are not, it's not a number that's not covered by a grant. The only number here that's not covered by grants or the 575. Okay, those are the small business loans that you all remember we gave.
Okay.
And the 2 points, the CRF's COVID line, those are dollars that were not covered by any grants, but have been subsequently reimbursed by the COVID, subsequently reimbursed. But
Is there any money, all right, let me ask it a different way. When I see I see 3 NAs. So is there anything that has not or will not be reimbursed?
Well, I can't say about the will not. At this point, you can see that on the bottom line here, you'll see there is CRF COVID appropriations. The 1,135,000 is really the amount that's actually spent. The 1,875,000 includes encumbrances, items that are emergency type purchases that have been coming forth in the recent past that has not actually been spent yet, but they have been committed to, and other type items. But those are POs that have been issued for COVID related type items, but the expenditure, we haven't written the check yet to cover the cost.
Okay,
And so to that extent, that would mean that we had $2.7 million. We would have $302,000 that are not covered. Are those?
Okay, let me ask it a different way then. Is there anything in our budget that took a hit that isn't going to be covered by anything?
Well, at this point, it's hard to answer.
Yes.
We have commitments out there, meaning purchase orders, commitments for items that the city has committed to. I don't know if those items have been, those expenditures have ever happened yet. Some of them have, some of them not. But as of right now, if I would take the commitments plus the items that the city has already paid, I would be down by $1.7 million, the city's piece.
You'd be down by how much?
1.7 million. If I take the commitments as well as the amounts that have been written checks for, and see right now, I don't know of the commitments, how many invoices are out there that haven't been paid, how much of those dollars have been committed. And I know some of them are still coming down the pipe.
Okay, so we made commitments because of COVID out of our budget, and that's cool. I'm just trying to get a number in mind. So we made these commitments, and certainly if we made these commitments, somebody's going to ask us to come through. I'm just trying to figure out what kind of hit our budget, when all of this stuff gets paid, our budget will have taken. And I believe that's $1.9 million. Is that it?
1.7.
Or 1.7?
Yeah, but what happens, that is assuming, and when I say commitments, I'm not necessarily saying commitment to an agency. These are commitments these are purchase orders that have been issued. These are
Yeah,
purchase
I'm
orders.
good with that.
Okay,
I'm just
all
trying to figure out if all things were equal and we paid all our bills, this hit would be 1.7 million that we would have spent otherwise or not spent at all had COVID not hit. The rest is covered by grants we got.
We would have spent otherwise had COVID not hit.
Spent
Other
other,
dollars we would have spent
I got it.
otherwise.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
That 1.7, Daisy, isn't that offset by the 2.5?
No, remember we were using the encumbrances as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry. Thanks.
But as of right now, without the commitments or without the POs, we don't have any COVID dollars expenditures that are not covered. But that as of right now, if I don't include the purchase orders, but there again, I cannot speak to the extent that the purchase orders will generate expenditures. Does that make sense?
Well, I think where I'm going with this is when COVID hit us, we had a lot of unexpected expenses.
Mm-hmm.
All right, some of them were covered by grants that we were fortunate enough to get. Purchase orders are out there, stuff is out there, and let's assume we pay our bills. So there's going to be a 1.7 that we've had to make up, that we would have spent elsewhere had this not come along.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's
And
based on the budget we approved before all this, there's a 1.7 shortfall. Now we'll make it up with something,
but no,
there's
that's not true. We anticipated having some COVID related expenditures because we were in a pandemic.
That's right.
So our budget anticipated some level of COVID expenditures. That is why we didn't do raises, and that is why we put the freeze in place. So because we were making room in the budget for COVID related costs.
Right. And some of these encumbrances that are out there are not just active purchase orders that we would be paying our bills on as well. That's what Daisy was referencing when she said she's not sure that they'll all come to fruition.
Right. They're not.
one last question, and then I'll give it to somebody else. So the money that you're taking this money out of reserves?
No.
Mm-mm.
No.
Okay, this money that, where is the anticipation money living?
There again, the monies that our budget, the $255 million budget, is inclusive of all of the dollars we're talking about right now. It's inclusive of all of the COVID related expenditures that we are covering right now.
Okay, where would I find it in the budget? Where would I find it? What line item? Where would I?
You will not have a line item that says COVID. They will be materials and supplies, operational costs that each department would have spent out of their budgets to cover that PPE and other related costs.
So something they held back to cover that.
Yeah. So yeah, the way we were able to cover it is because we didn't give raises. And we didn't allow people to hire. That's the primary way we were able to cover it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll turn it over to you.
Well, Councilman Ledford, do you want to take a shot at this?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I've got a couple. Daisy, so the not allowing for the raises and hiring freeze was our safety net.
Yes.
Okay, that I can understand. Can you put a dollar amount on that approximately?
If I remember correctly, and don't hold me to it, I think attrition was around $4 million.
Okay, so we had planned ahead knowing COVID was, okay. So that was
Right.
our safety net. That was our, which I think was very smart. When you went back originally, you said that original, I'm shifting gears on you, I'm sorry. The 575 that we had given out to small businesses,
Mhm.
you said a loan. Was that a loan or were those?
Well, yeah, Armand and I was talking about that earlier. I think those are grants.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that
Grants.
we were following it. I thought they were grants.
Yeah, someone put
And
it
in
on
this new package, we have 300,000 again for small businesses. And those two will be grants.
Yes.
Have we decided how to slice that up?
Mara would have to address that one.
Have
Have you
I'm not
decided
sure
how?
what slice that up means.
Oh, into increments. How are we going to slice that loaf of bread
Like,
for
who
small
gets-
businesses? How will they, what dollar amount will they be able to apply for?
I need Jermaine. I need to
That's
phone
okay.
a friend.
Let's do it. Let's do it offline. We'll do
Okay.
it offline.
Thanks.
And then the second or the third part of this is for me is reading what I'm reading in the papers about the Hamilton County Health Department. Do you anticipate seeing a reduction in COVID-related spending?
No,
No, that's a pretty important question. Tell me why.
because our numbers are continuing to grow. We had 12 deaths today
Mhm.
in our community. We have 434 new cases. We have 2,960 active cases in our community. People are dying of this pandemic, of this virus, and we need to be able to take action. We need the flexibility in our community to help people. And this is a call to action like our society has not seen, and we have got to respond.
Understood. And I was hoping you'd share some of those numbers. How do we, with our emergency purchases, we've seen that come through for testing. Do we anticipate seeing that level continuing? And if so, what is our plan? Because I'm trying to get to the root of the concern we had last week about splitting out the funding into employees versus the agency. And I think what we're trying to get to is the agency part now, or making sure that we have what we have, given that the anticipated spending is still on the horizon. Are we prepared for that?
I believe that we are. I believe that we are being incredibly judicious with our spending, and we're being very, very careful. I have full confidence in Miss Madison and Daisy and her team, and we have reworked this budget so many times before we gave it to y'all, as you recall, and we have reworked it since.
Yeah, it was tough. I know. I think you all did a great job. There's no
I
doubt about
believe
that.
they did as well, and we are continually reworking it. As Daisy said to the administrators on Monday, I cannot wait to get 21's fiscal year 21's budget done so that we can start talking about fiscal year 22's. And that is the case. We are continually reworking it, but we knew that going in. We knew that this was going to be an unusual budget year, and it's going to keep going.
I'm excited to hear Miss Madison talk about 2022. So,
And if I can, I think a lot of it, she said the budget team, but it really is the employees of the city who is allowing us to be able to operate during this pandemic, with pay sacrifices and position sacrifices, and still getting work done. And so that money could be used for unexpected or other things during the pandemic. So those are the real heroes here.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Chairman, that's all I have for right now. I just really wanted to kind of clarify what the forward thinking was, what the past thinking was, and also to make sure that we are prepared for what's coming up, and to make sure that before we make any move forward, that those resources are available as we need them. I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And let me, I guess, a little bit for clarification for the council. Last week, I had asked that we divide the question. In other words, the employee bonuses versus the agency spending. And one of the reasons I wanted to do that is I think it's a no-brainer. We want to give those bonuses to our employees. What I wanted to spend a little bit more time on was the amount of money that we were giving to the agencies. I wanted to ensure that the expenditures that we had incurred during this pandemic were being reimbursed. In other words, we were reimbursing the taxpayers for those expenditures. And I shared this story with Ms. Sullivan back in 06 and 07, when our industry was just going gangbusters. We had a little bit of windfall on profit. And rather than buying equipment and spending money, I used that to get out of debt and to build cash reserves. And I look at this money that we're getting and asking myself the question, going into what we know is a difficult situation, would we not be better off setting aside some of that money for cash reserves for unreserved fund balance? I personally just feel like that we need to take a second look, another look at what we are giving or spending towards the agencies. I want to make sure that our taxpayers are reimbursed for what we've had to spend on the COVID, on the pandemic, multiple emergency purchases we've made. And then, Mara, I think you shared with me, and really my question was, I wanted a list of expenditures and then just a total of dollars that have come in. And really what I wanted, sort of a balance sheet, what have our expenditures been versus the revenues that have come in. And I think you shared with me that maybe we're about 175,000 upside down right now at this point. So I just want to make sure that we have in this, if you want to call it a windfall of money that's come from the state through the federal government, that we make sure and do our due diligence as a council, and we make sure and have healthy reserves to be able to address some of these dire needs that we have in the community. And some of our callers that got on with us last week talked about making sure those that had those emergency needs were taken care of first. So I personally think we need to take a second look at the agency spending. The reason I asked for it to be divided into two questions is so that we could go ahead and get those employee bonuses out to our employees, and then take a step back and just take a look at those that spending to the agency. So I'm going to leave it at that. Let the council make up their mind how they would like to handle it. Ms. Sullivan, thank you for getting back with us with this list, and Ms. Madison. Council, any other questions for Ms. Madison or Ms. Sullivan? Okay. All right, very well.
Certainly do that expenditure list for you like a balance sheet, like you described. Yeah. We've got it in that way, and we can slice and dice it all those different ways. We're keeping up with it in many different ways, and we're happy to share that with you. And again, we selected the agencies that we selected for this because they are doing work for the city and on behalf of the city. The Tivoli, the Bessie, the 211. If the 211 calls weren't being answered at 211, they'd be answered at 311. And then, of course, supporting our small businesses. And these are agencies that are helping us, and we want to keep them solvent so they keep moving forward to help us help people in the community and to continue to spread the work and spread the load of the work to keep our community moving forward during this pandemic.
Councilman Gilbert, I see your hand. Unmute your mic, sir.
This is for you, Chair. Are we going to read the alternate version at 6?
What I plan on doing is asking Ms. Nicole to read alternate version 2A and then 2B.
Okay. Thanks.
All right.
Good.
All right.
Okay. My hand's raised.
Miss Stacy,
I
go
was
ahead.
looking for my hand here. and I
Yeah,
wasn't-
it's attached to your arm. Go ahead and stick it up.
I just wanted to say that I really appreciate Councilman Henderson's comments and remarks. And if I'm sure the administration will tell you, and you guys have noticed over the years, when it comes to budgets, the finance department here is very, very conservative in that regard. And I hate to use the word conservative. It's just, we don't spend a lot of money. I mean, we are careful to make sure that our reserves are protected. And the kinds of things that you were talking about, we considered that even as we went into this current year's budget. That is why, again, we didn't use any of those reserves. And that is why we didn't establish a base going forward that we could not sustain. And that is why we did not fund as much capital this year as we would normally do. But as we are doing this, we also have to be very careful that we continue to sustain our infrastructure. And a couple of the agencies that are involved there is, they are pretty much quasi-governmental agencies. And if they didn't do what they were doing, the city would be doing it directly themselves. So the cost would be there regardless, because we do have to maintain those facilities in order to be ready when the economy turns around. So I just wanted to comment, thank you for, wanted to make sure our reserves are intact. And I want you to know that that's Mara and I fight over that, quite frankly, a lot of times, it's like, so yeah, I'm looking, and I want you guys, if you'll look at the monthly reports that I send, and I know you, with all the stuff you have going on, and when you get a bunch of numbers across your desk, you don't have time to look at them. But you receive monthly, year to date, as to what those revenues and expenditures are doing. I'm happy to talk about that anytime with you, but know that we're monitoring that and taking the appropriate steps to make sure that our reserves are intact and our expenditures are well within our revenues. Okay, thank you for letting me.
I'm doing my best to help you stay conservative.
Didn't
All
take
right,
offense at that at all.
Councilwoman Coonrod, I see your hand.
That was just so you know, that's not a political term. Everybody up there.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Chair, thank you, Chair. I would like to make a motion when it's time to separate the agencies out. And instead of voting for them as one, if we could separate them out individually.
Mr. Attorney, is that a possibility?
Yes, sir. It is your ordinance to at least vote on here regarding the budget process. If that occurs, I would recommend this evening, unless you're wanting us to prepare an ordinance for each one of the appropriations, to do a line item on that this evening.
I think at this point, it might be better if you wish to go down that route to defer and get it ready that way.
And we can do that the following week if that's what you wish.
Okay. All right. I see no other hands. Miss Karen, could you excuse our guests? Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's move down into planning items, first reading. Councilman Ledford, I think you had a hand up there, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, I will be moving to withdraw case number 2020-0139. I did hear from the applicant as expected, and Mr. Schultz can confirm that as well. Thank you.
Is that D?
6E, I believe, on the agenda.
E?
I have D.
E,
Have D?
D.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Let me make
Zero,
sure.
0139, you say?
0139.
Okay, that's D.
Okay, all right.
And while we're on that note, Mr. Bridger has, come up with some language, and we've added an alternate version on case number 0127, item B, that I would like to move on tonight. It is the alternate version. They both pretty much read the same, but it adds some language that ties the development to the site plan.
Will that be alternate version 2, Chairman?
There is only one alternate version under B.
It is highlighted on your agenda there. It should be, or bold-faced on your agenda.
Bold one in the middle.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
you're modifying it, not adding an alternate 2.
Well, we added some conditions to it.
Okay, so the version we have is the modified version.
Well, the one that says alternate version is the modified version. That's correct.
Thank you. That's what. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, Councilman Gilbert. You're muted again, sir.
On G, the 0163, I'd like to go to alternate version, and I need to ask, did we get in touch with the applicant on that request for conditions?
Let me see. John wasn't sure if he was going to be able to join us.
John is back in, sir.
John's here? Okay. You want to bring John Bridger in, sir?
Pardon my interruptions. I'm just.
Councilman Gilbert?
Sir, yes, bring him in.
Okay. Ms. Karen, if you'd bring John Bridger in, please. Good afternoon, Mr. Bridger.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
We can.
Yeah, so yeah, I need to email the applicant on that one as well. Councilman Gilbert, I'll shoot him an email and make sure he's aware of the use conditions.
Thank you. Will you know before we vote on this?
I'm gonna make an effort to do that.
All right, thank you.
John, did you ever get a hold of the applicant in my case
Brian,
as well?
yeah, he sent them an email. So what I'll do is I'll call both applicants just to make sure they're looking for those emails, and then I'll let you both know the status of that before 6 o'clock.
Okay, great.
Great.
Any other questions for Mr. Bridger from any council person? See no hands. Thank you, sir. Ms. Karen, you can dismiss our guest. All right, any other questions or comments concerning our planning items? If not, we'll move down into resolutions. And Madam Clerk, would you read 7C, please?
A resolution confirming the mayor's appointment of Dan Wright to the Wastewater Regulations and Appeals Board.
Any questions or comments? Okay, I see no hands. We did go over D, E, and F under the planning items last week. Any questions or comments concerning those? I won't have the clerk read them. If not, Madam Clerk, if you'd read G, please, under police.
A resolution authorizing the Chattanooga Police Department to accept the FY 2020 Local Law Enforcement BJA Grant for Crime Gun Intelligence Centers Grant for 36 months, starting October 1, 2020 through September 30, 2023, in the amount of $700,000.
All right. Questions or comments? Very well. If you would, council, pull up your purchasing items for this afternoon and let me know if you have any questions concerning those items. Okay, seeing no hands concerning our purchase items for this afternoon. Okay, December 15th agenda, if you would look at next week's agenda. And let me know or if there are any concerns on next week's agenda that you'd like to address this afternoon. Okay. Under future considerations, if you would pull those items up, I have been made aware by the administration that those items will be on our agenda when we return on January the 5th. So if you have any questions concerning those items, we need to address them now or possibly next week. They will be on the agenda for January the 5th. Councilman Ledford.
Chairman, just because there's so many items for the Summit of Softball, I think we're covering those in our Public Works and Transportation, so I'll hold off on those, but I have been in contact with Mr. Payne on many of those. So.
Okay, all right, very well. Councilman Mitchell, if you would, sir, make sure that we do cover those in your committee.
Yes, sir.
All right, we do have a departmental report this afternoon. I tell you, before we go to that, let's go to our IDB discussion and take care of our council business. I think 7, 8, and 9 did submit a resume for an applicant. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Coonrod.
Oh, Lance, I was trying to whisper you his name, Lance Truitt.
Lance Truitt. That's hard to do over the internet, isn't it? Okay, and will y'all be, when will you be placing him on our agenda for nomination?
Could you say it again?
When will you be placing Mr. Truitt on for nomination? Is that?
If I may, Councilwoman, if it needs to be placed on the agenda, then we can make that next week. We were just under the impression we could have just made the announcement tonight. Yeah. But if we need to get with the city attorney, with your permission, we'll just put his name for consideration next week, so it can be all done before the first of the year.
Okay, that is something that has to be voted on by the council. So,
sure.
So Mr. Attorney, if you would place that on the agenda for next week under other business.
All right, sir.
Councilwoman Burrs.
Just a question. So whose place does he take?
He is filling
Leibowitz.
Alan Leibowitz.
Yeah.
Leibowitz.
Okay.
Position.
And then there's one more vacancy or one more.
That will fill the vacancy. There are some terms that are expiring, but they have agreed to stay on until we can get it to a 9-member board. That makes sense?
Oh, okay.
There was one vacancy that had to be filled, and 4, 5, and 6 filled that vacancy with somebody that was already on the board. And so this will fill a void, if you will, a vacancy.
And so what happens to the other one that was supposed to, I think there were 2.
No.
There was Jimmy Rogers and somebody else. I don't have the name, but
their term was just expiring.
Right.
But
well, excuse me.
They agreed to stay on until they could be reappointed or more board members placed on. Does that make sense?
Okay.
They've agreed to continue to serve.
Who does they refer to?
Current members of the board.
The board members.
I know that, Bill. Do they have names?
Yes, ma'am. We have a whole group of them here.
Oh, all right. I thought there was.
There's 7 total members on there, and they need to be 9. That's what we will try to get you for.
Yeah.
I think what she's referring to, the board members that their term is expiring, that they have agreed to stay on. Have you got their names?
I will get it.
Ray Adkins is one of them.
Right.
And then Jimmy Rogers was one of them. And I think maybe there were one more that his term was
Miss
expired.
Butler.
Miss Butler.
Selena Butler.
Okay.
Mhm.
And she's agreed to stay on until she can be reappointed and/or
Mhm.
we put 9 members.
Okay, and do we have a timeline for all of that?
The Secretary of State will have to accept a revised charter amendment to allow that to occur. As soon as that occurs, then you can add 2 more members.
Thank you.
Yes.
Councilman Oglesby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to, for a point of interest, that Mr. Truitt is being appointed to District's 9 spot on the board,
Okay.
just
All
for
right.
a matter of record. Is that correct, Councilwoman Coonrod?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that was out there. Okay.
Okay. All right. All the discussion on the IDB. We will have Mr. Truitt's name on the agenda next week under other business for consideration. So at this time, we will have a departmental report by our fire department. And let me see who's got their hand up. I think
Oh,
Chief Hyman.
that's me. Let me lower my hand, Mr. Chair.
No, I'm over in attendees.
Oh, okay.
You're not over in that group, are you?
I hope not.
Miss Karen, would you bring in Chief Hyman, please?
I think I lost him. He was here. Now
He's at the very top of the list. He's got his hand raised.
got it.
That's not helping.
He's coming.
Okay. Hey, Chief, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Council. How are y'all?
Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. We've got a brief presentation and I'll share my screen at this time and hope this works.
Okay. I believe it's working.
Screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm just going to talk a little bit about how we've been impacted during the pandemic and give you kind of some specific numbers of where we've been at. Overall, in our operations division, the number of structure fires decreased briefly during March, April, and May. The number of calls that we ran, actually. You can see the decrease there, and we kind of attribute to that to folks staying at home and attribute that to also some of the EMS protocols that were pulled back to help protect responders at that time. Around June, those protocols were opened back up, and as you can see, from June all the way to November now, our call load is creeping back up there, almost to normal levels again. You can also see there on the right the number of structure fires, particularly in April, June, and July. We hit some kind of record numbers there as far as our business is concerned. And we think that that's partly too from people being at home. But it's been an extremely busy last several months, and we continue to have staffing challenges. And I'll talk a little bit more about how staffing has been affected by COVID as well. Our Fire Prevention Bureau, and we don't talk a whole lot about our Fire Prevention Bureau because they do a lot of work. They inspect all of our commercial businesses. But initially, they do an outstanding job, and you don't see them in the limelight near as much, and they're doing a lot of the work kind of behind the scenes and making sure our businesses are up to code and doing tons and tons of inspections. So our fire marshal does a really good job coordinating those individuals and really getting them out there. But we did have an impact in the reduction of the amount of inspections that we had to do, particularly during April and May at the very beginning of the pandemic. But it's rebounded in the last few months, and they're still working hard, even with work at home options. They're still able to go to businesses and get inspections done. So we're proud that they're keeping their numbers up and staying busy and trying to stay ahead of the curve. We do predict that with the numbers rising like they are, I know Mara just spoke about some pretty dramatic numbers COVID-wise that have impacted everyone really, and we predict that those numbers may come down again, but time will tell with that. Another project that we're working on with OpMod Group is the Chatalytics project, and this is something that's new for us. There are some other fire departments throughout the country that do fire risk scoring, And this is just some predictive science, data science that we can rely on to help our inspectors prioritize all of our commercial buildings. Clearly, we don't have enough inspectors to inspect every commercial building every year and stay ahead of the curve. So this Chatalytic project is pretty important because it really identifies which large number of commercial occupancies that we really need to focus on. And it helps the inspectors, instead of just going straight down the list or looking at a list in their district, it really helps them pinpoint our high target areas, like schools and some of the other larger number commercial properties. We started the test phase in this back in November, and we've already inspected quite a few properties. So I'm really looking forward to what the next year of data brings for us and helping us determine that fire risk score so we can get our inspectors in those commercial buildings. But thanks to the OpMod team for helping us get to that point. They've been outstanding as far as getting that project off the ground. Staffing challenges. I'll spend a little bit of time here. Staffing has obviously been a challenge with us due to vacancies and a lot of the COVID related issues that we've had. We watch our staffing levels very, very, very closely. And in my nearly 25 years here, the staffing levels at 3.4 personnel for November is probably some of the lowest numbers that I've seen. And I think we've touched on this not too long ago, talking about fire academies and that thing, and the amount of vacancies that we have. But over half of the time we're riding out with 3.4 personnel. And that's when things can get a little dangerous. And that's why we kicked off the small modified academy that we talked about. They just started last Friday, and they'll be graduating the first of the year. And that puts just a few people back in seats to help fill that gap. We were really hoping for more individuals to show interest in that modified academy. And when I say modified academy, these individuals already have a number of their certifications, so I can pretty much shorten the academy down to about 9 or 10 weeks and actually put them on the truck instead of the full 6-month academy. But it didn't yield the kind of folks that we were looking for. It just really didn't. It didn't yield. There just wasn't a whole lot of people out there ready to come here, particularly for the base pay that we had for them with all the certifications already in place. So we pulled back. We'll punt again. I'll take that as my failure. But I think we're going to focus now on a full academy, tentatively to start in late April, all dependent upon, I know Mara had some pretty, and Daisy had some pretty dramatic news about overall budgets and where we're at with vacancies and that. But we're going to try to pull a full academy off late April. That's our plan. We have enough vacancies, I think, to cover that. And I think we'll do that. We just opened that up. The application period will end the end of this month. So if you know anybody that's interested, please share that out so we can get some folks hired here. It's super important for us to fill those vacancies. Other things that are going on with us, we're about to start we just sent out our promotional testing and assessment announcement. That will begin here in the spring. Those are for our individuals that are looking to progress or advance through the ranks, particularly with lieutenant, captain, and battalion chief. And this is one of those processes that we do about every 2 years is the rotation that we have set up. So we're looking forward to that. So we're trying to maintain some sort of consistency even during COVID times. And this promotional testing is one of those things that we're excited about the next level and helping these folks advance through the ranks. More things that are on our plate. We're continuing pay plan discussions, and we know that budget is super tight and will be extremely unique in the next year to come. But we have been working with the mayor's office, union leadership, to really focus on our pay plan. I just spoke on that with you guys just a week or so ago on our overall pay plan. And I think you guys understand the importance of getting that pay plan to the next level. We know that it takes money to do that, but it benefits our hiring and really our retention of our experienced employees. I think I shared some data with you before that anywhere from that 3 to 5 to 7 year range is where we're losing people. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of training to get those folks experience at that level, and to see them leave here is detrimental to morale, and it's really detrimental to our whole service. So that's something that we're really focused on. And obviously with pay plans, increases morale, and morale is a major concern of ours. It's something that we work on every single day. And many of these things about morale are out of our control. But we do focus on it. It is important. It's important to the firefighters. It's important to me personally, that we try to affect morale in the most positive way that we can. Unfortunately, with COVID stressors and staffing concerns and revenues being down, it makes it extremely challenging to keep that morale up. But I appreciate every one of y'all at least letting us be able to speak the other week on pay issues to build a little bit of hope with the firefighters. And that's what it really boils down to, just advocating for them and knowing that we're trying to fight for them and trying to get to the next level. But always a concern of mine. And with that, I'll take any questions that you guys might have.
All right, Councilwoman Burrs.
You muted. Relative to the promotional testing and assessment, I know that we, I believe, paid for that to come about. My question is, what happens if people meet promotional guidelines? There's still that pay issue.
Hey, Chief,
What's the discussion about that?
Can we take the screen down?
Bear with me. Is that better?
There you go. Now.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Chair, my question was promotional testing.
Yeah.
And I know we were interested in that, and we were part of funding to let that happen. With our current budget, what is the thinking about promotional testing? And I think a lot of the men and women will do well. Where does the funding come for the increased pay?
So they're not additional positions that we're adding. So let's take, for example, if a captain retires, then I'm able to promote the next captain on the list to his spot. So the money's already there paying that individual.
Thank you.
And that's how all the promotions work that way. I don't promote anybody to any of those positions unless I have an opening to put them in.
Okay, thanks. That helps.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Any other questions for the chief? I do have one, Chief, and you may have covered this, and I don't remember. Were we able to do any of the smoke detector replacements? I know we do that program every year. With COVID, I didn't know if we were able to do anything this year or not.
We did not do it this year. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. We advertised on our Facebook page quite a bit and got some information out there to the public, but to do in person, it put our folks at risk. It would have put the folks at Red Cross that help us with that process too at risk. And I think everyone with the COVID numbers like they were, we didn't feel comfortable doing those kind of programs at this time, but we will certainly pick it up if numbers ease back a little bit and we get this vaccine going. We will certainly pick that program up again. We don't want to abandon that one at all. I think it's extremely important that we get that out there, but we'll continue post-COVID, hopefully.
Okay, great. All right, Chief, I see no other hands. Thank you for your report.
Thank y'all so much. Appreciate your support.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Karen, you can excuse our guest. And if there are no other items that need to come before the council during agenda time, I will now turn the chair over to Councilman Mitchell for Public Works and Transportation Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellent job. Thank you very much. We're going to start with transportation today. We have some items on the agenda for today, as well as next week when we get over to Public Works. But the way I'd like it to work today is do the three first reading ordinances on transportation, and then go into the policy on alleys, which we were unable to accomplish a couple weeks ago, just to make sure I don't stand Blythe up again. So, Madam Clerk, if you would you please read First ordinance 6K.
An ordinance closing and abandoning several unopened, unimproved right-of-ways within the southern portion of the St. Elmo neighborhood as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Ledford.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to move to approve the minutes?
Well, that'd be a heck of a thing for you to do. I'd really appreciate that.
I'd like to second it.
Move to approve the minutes, sir.
And I think everybody's behind you on that too.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's a
second.
first.
Way to go.
First time for
Way to
everything.
go. Thank you. Okay, all right. So we read, thank you very much. We read 6K. Any questions on 6K?
No, none, Mr. Chair. We've gone over this before, and it's really a great ordinance that they're putting together, because with the abandonment, they're talking about preserving that area located in that part of St. Elmo by Lookout Mountain Conservancy. So I'm looking forward to approving this tonight.
All right, that sounds great. Actually, I think we've gone over most of these, but I think Councilman Ledford wants a little bit to say so as far as the tornadoes are concerned with all the things when we get to public works. So we're going to keep going. 6L, please.
An ordinance closing and abandoning the remaining segment of an unopened alley in the 2700 block of Rossville Boulevard as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
Okay.
Okay. M, please.
An ordinance closing and abandoning a portion of the western right-of-way along the 1700 block of South Watkins as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
All right, I see no hands. Mr. Bailey, would you please bring Mr. Bailey in, please? Before you get started. There you go. Okay, yeah. All right, so we're going to have a discussion on policy on alleys, Mr. Bailey. Is that okay with you?
Certainly.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sir, let me share my screen. I've got a quick presentation. Oops. I want to show you the last slide first. Okay. So I hope you can hear me. I assume if you couldn't, you would let me know. I'll get right into it. You all know that alleys are very important to us at CDOT, and they're important to the city. I think one of the recent departmental report, I believe in August, we provided a pretty thorough update on alleys. I did have some questions that followed that presentation, and Chairman Henderson, you also indicated that there was some confusion in the community, and at least from your constituents, and you were hearing from some of your colleagues, some confusion about how what services the city provides on alleys. So I'm happy to provide more information. I'm going to try to focus on a couple of things that we've done to clarify how the city serves alleys, and I'll get right into it. Like I said, this is pretty quick. I just want to provide a pretty quick overview. Some of these things we said and we have talked about over and over again, but it's worth reinforcing. Some of you remember in 2016, ordinance number 28838 was passed, which established the city's policy on right-of-way and abandonment. That also is adopted by the Planning Commission, and that's what we use to govern generally what we do with alleys, in particular requests for abandonment. One thing in that policy that I think is worth emphasizing is that it says that the purpose of the policy is to retain rights of way for public use and only to recommend the permanent closure and abandonment of rights of way when it is demonstrated that the public has no further need or interest to retain the right of way. So when we bring abandonments forward, we usually try to reference that policy, as does the Planning Commission and the staff when they do a staff report. We also have a couple of other things that we do for citizens. We offer a temporary use permit. That's what the TU means on the slide. We oversee temporary use permits, which are sometimes used by permittees to make improvements or modifications to existing alleys. Sometimes we're approached by someone who's interested in using an underutilized alley, something that's not used very much, for something that they think they need to abandon the alley for that function. We almost always try to steer these inquiries towards temporary use, because we find that lots of times we can use the temporary use permit, which is not, there's not an expiration. So it is a temporary use permit, but it's semi-permanent. They can last indefinitely. That we find that we can use those permits to help people use existing alleys for what they want, rather than permanently severing the future connectivity that those alleys may provide. I mentioned already mandatory referral. That's the MR on your slide. And you all know how that works, because we bring abandonments forward to council for your consideration. I believe there are some on today's agenda for your consideration. That's a shared process by the Regional Planning Agency and ourselves. And we use that adopted policy that I reference on crafting our staff recommendation, both in the help of the Planning Agency, for the Planning Commission, and then later for the City Council. And then lastly, maintenance, Public Works and CDOT collaboratively share maintenance responsibilities for our alleys, just like we do our streets. We do maintain alleys that are considered open. And I'll go into more in that designation, because I think that is the source of the confusion that I wanted to focus on. Maintenance includes clipping vegetation, localized repair, and in some instances, paving. Although I think you all recognize we probably infrequently pave our alleys simply because they are lower traffic, lower intensity pieces of infrastructure that have a lower quality threshold than our other streets. And so we try to let our money spread as far as we can. So we try to focus on those streets that are used by more citizens, but alleys are eligible for repaving, especially ones that are used for garbage services or other utility services, or ones that are used for rear access. Let me go to my next slide. I did want to discuss, as I mentioned, some of the things that I think deserve some clarification. Chairman Mitchell, I think you indicated when you asked for this presentation that you were looking for some clarity on the services that the city does and doesn't provide in some of our public rights of way. I'm going to spend the remainder of this presentation on various classifications of our city alleys and how the public can access this information. And also in preparation for this, when I heard you ask several weeks ago, Chairman Mitchell, I thought to myself, maybe there's something new and simple that can provide some direction. We've actually created 2 new documents that will be available to the general public. I'm going to share a link for both of them. One of them is already available on the city website. There's a link available on the city website, and it will be placed on our website for anyone to use. It's sort of a one-stop shop for everything that I'm presenting today, and also covers a lot of this information. Firstly, you all may or may not be familiar with the GIS information available on the city's website. I've created a video tutorial, which was fun to do because I know that years ago when I first interfaced with this website, it was hard to find some things. I do think it's pretty user-friendly, but sometimes it's helpful just to show somebody exactly how to do it. I'll show you that. I'll share that with you in a second. But first, this is the map that's available to anyone. This is, you can access this any number of ways. You can turn on the information that shows the various classifications of alleys, and you can see that I have taken a screenshot of a map that I have used where I have turned on the right-of-way alley layer, and you can see that open is orange, unopen is blue, closed is black, and temp use is magenta. Let me say a little bit about these designations. Open rights of way are rights of way which are both platted and accepted by the city. That means that they were drawn out in plan when the subdivisions were created, and some of them recently, and some of them as long ago as over a century. Typically, open alleys are usable for mobility or utility. In other words, they look like alleys. They're paved. Those alleys, the city does have a responsibility for maintenance on. Unopened alleys are rights of way which have only been platted. They're drawn on paper, but they have not been accepted by the city. They are not public infrastructure that is infrastructure that the city maintains. In many cases, unopened alleys are unrecognizable. Sometimes they have vegetation grown in them. They do sometimes have paved surfaces because in their history, they may have been paved by a private party or for some other reason they may have been used, but they are unaccepted by the city and therefore not something that the city maintains. Closed or abandoned is pretty self-explanatory. Rights of way that have gone through the process that were platted, that have gone through the process of ordinance and mandatory referral that have been abandoned are considered closed. These really aren't right of ways. These are the rights of way disappear and the property goes back to the original owners. And temp use, I think you all are very familiar with temp use. I won't take a whole lot of time on that, but happily we'll take questions on it. Temp use permits, we have a good source of information on our website that describes the various ways that applicants can interact with rights of way and streets with our temporary use permit. And you all are familiar with projecting signs on buildings that are against the property line, sidewalk cafes. Sometimes we use temporary use to allow people to use an unopened alley for their access. And my last slide covers some of these things, and I'm going to take a moment to just share what we've done. Our website, I mentioned at chattanooga.gov, contains significant information already on abandonment of right-of-way and temporary use of right-of-way, as well as all the other programs that we do. Because the responsibilities for alleys and programs governing what we do related to alleys are shared in multiple different locations, and in some cases by different departments, we created a simple 2-page summary that is now available as a link through the City of Chattanooga website. I mentioned that earlier. I'll share this link with you as soon as this meeting is over, so you can share it with your, excuse me. But first I'll just show it to you. So this is actually linked. I don't expect you to write down this link. As I mentioned, I will share that with you as soon as this meeting is over. But this is I wanted to make it simple. It's 2 pages. It basically covers everything I just said. You can see the responsibilities that are shared by 2 different departments, the reference to the ordinance that provides the right-of-way closure and abandonment policy that I mentioned, a temporary use process and application forms available on our website. There is an operating procedure that's not publicly available, but it does define how we maintain our rights of way. GIS maps, this provides a link to that map service that I mentioned earlier, the classifications of open, unopened, and abandoned, eligible maintenance functions, and then an index of alley classifications. And briefly, I'll take you to this link that shows the tutorial. I don't know how this is going to go. If you can hear this, I'll play it, but if you can't hear it, we'll stop and I'll send it to you when the meeting is over. This is a tutorial that was designed to help a citizen know how to navigate the city website. Hi, I understand you may be interested in determining more information about city alleys. This tutorial is going to show you how to use the GIS map offering on the City of Chattanooga website so that you can access the information that you might be looking for. On your browser, type in chattanooga.gov. When you do that, you'll see this website and you'll see a green bar in the bottom right corner that includes a number of different things, including GIS Maps link. Click on that bar. The GIS Maps link is on the top right corner. Click on that link and it will open the GIS mapping system. It might take a minute to load, and when it does, I'm going to show you how to use the various layers that are available to anyone that wants to move around on the map and determine different things about our city. Again, this tutorial is about alleys, so I'm going to zoom into a part of town east of downtown Chattanooga that I know has alleys that are classified in different ways. And I'm going to turn on the layers. There's certain layers that are automatically turned on and some that you have to turn on manually. You'll see a menu called Transportation that you can expand by hitting the plus sign. Turn on the Transportation menu, and then for the alley information, turn on Alleys Right-of-Ways, and you will see a number of colors show up. You can. I'll stop there, members of the council, because I think many of you probably already use this resource. If you don't, I hope that was helpful, and I can happily share it for you if you'd like to see it again, and also share it with your constituents. I know many of whom don't know that exists, and so it may be helpful to be able to share that with them so they can access this information. This page here, and I'll stop sharing. Actually, I want to do one more thing before I stop sharing, but this shows you the same colors that we just saw on one of those previous slides, and our information that I referenced earlier. We have a temporary use resource, a right-of-way abandonment and closure resource, and we'll be placing that summary alley document on this page as soon as we can get it up. So with that, I will stop sharing and gladly take questions. I hope, Chairman Mitchell, I answered some of the questions that you were hearing, but I'm certainly happy to take any of them if there are any that I didn't cover.
Yeah, I was very happy with that, Michael. We got a couple of questions. Councilman Gilbert.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Blight, do you just say that alleys that's been paved will be maintained?
Actually, Councilman, I said
if city paved an alley, it will be maintained.
If the city has paved an alley, from my long-term interaction with Mr. Noblet, the city paving an alley is effectively an acceptance of that alley, and therefore it would be considered open. Okay, and is it complaint driven for as when it get maintained for as the brush going over, or is it on a schedule to get trimmed? I believe it's complaint driven, Mr. Councilman. I have to yield to my colleagues in public to know if they do schedule, but I do know that they do it complaint driven through 311. I always take an opportunity to encourage citizens and yourselves to use the 311 system. I know my department uses it regularly to see what kinds of complaints are out there and what citizens are seeing, because we can't be all the eyes on the street. So the 311 system works really well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. Blythe, you probably can't answer. I don't know. You might can't. Who made up these rules or this procedure in how we handle alleys? Who made this up and when?
I'm not sure that I inherited the procedure, Councilman, but I'm not sure if you're. I think the procedure is sensible, and look at it this way. There are thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of linear feet of platted but unaccepted rights of way. So as a matter of fiscal responsibility, the city has to have a limit on what it can maintain. So I'm not going to say that I created the system, but I think the system makes sense as it relates to creating clear boundaries around what services we can and can't provide.
I just wanted to know, like you say, you inherited this system. So, systems can be tweaked or systems can be modified because times change. We went from a pager to an iPhone. So I would like to know, just if you get a chance, when this system or this procedure was put in place, or when you inherited, like who made it up and how long ago has this procedure been in place? And we can talk about it offline, but I would like to know that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to look back and see when we established these parameters.
Thank you so much. All right.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilman. Any more questions for Mr. Bailey? Anything at all for Mr. Bailey, for that matter? If not, then Councilman Byrd, you don't have another question, do you? Please lower your hand. And we will go to Public Works. Thank you very much, Mr. Bailey. Wow, you didn't even give him a chance to say thank you. Wow. Just cut him out.
Very efficient.
Okay. All right. Who's going to speak for Public Works today? Someone's got their hand raised. Is it Bill Payne? Okay. Hello, Mr. Payne.
Hello.
All right. Now, first of all, we went over these a little bit. These resolutions are on the 15th of December in future considerations a couple of weeks ago. But Councilman Ledford, you have quite a bit here. See where we go?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I don't need to go over any of them really in depth. Bill and I had a great conversation. I was at Summit Complex and actually walked around, and he was nice enough to stay on the phone with me. I think it was on a weekend even. So appreciate the call, Bill. And I think that just a couple of points to make, Chairman, but do not need to go through all of them.
Okay. Well, let's just quickly read 7G. Let's start with that.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to approve change order number 2 final to 3D Enterprises Contracting Corporation of Lexington, Kentucky, relative to contract number W14006-201, Moccasin Bend WWTP Secondary Clarifier Upgrades, a consent decree project, for an increased amount of $400,000 for a revised contract amount not to exceed $14,927,000.
Councilman Henderson, are you okay? Okay.
Must be.
Must be. Okay. All right. H, we went over this in future considerations as District 2, and I'm absolutely thrilled with it. So we don't have to read that one. Is I something you would like to emphasize a point with, Councilman Ledford?
Chairman, IJKLM, really, Bill, if you would talk a little bit about why, I think this would be a good chance for us to talk about, we had a presentation that was informative a couple of weeks ago where the word debundling of contracts was mentioned and how it can benefit and open up to create more diversity and opportunity for doing business with the city. And so while I was on the phone with Bill and combing through the wreckage safely out at Summit, not getting in any of the rubbish, but I asked Bill about this process. Would this be a great example to showcase as a debundling example, and how the city can create more diversity and opportunities for purchasing and doing business with the city? Bill,
Yes.
if you want to just give me a little bit of why we did this, why it's broken out into so many different pieces, and the philosophy behind that.
Certainly, I'm happy to do that. And so the opportunity to debundle actually presented itself for a couple of reasons. One, of course, is first and foremost that ability to be able to increase the number of different suppliers that we're using, whether they're small businesses or disadvantaged businesses that are able to do business with the city. Had we put all of this work into a single contract, it would have probably been in the neighborhood of $750,000. And many times the necessary insurance and bonding requirements for a contract of that size limits the scope and the number of contractors that can and will bid the city on a contract of that size. And so while this list that you see, which is on for next week, does not represent all of the contracts at Summit, you can certainly see from this list, there's one that's around $220,000, $230,000, and all the rest are $50,000 or less. And so it actually has provided us with a couple of different, opportunities to be able to be sure that we're getting the best price for specialty contracts. We're also typically are not paying a markup to a general contractor when they have to sub these items out as well. So, certainly our hope is that we increase our diversity and we're also able to still get good value for the dollar. In this case, we also are able to, because the insurance proceeds from the city's insurance on this site, because it was tornado damage related, there is some insurance coverage. There is a finite amount of those dollars. And so we wanted to be sure that we were able to repair or replace the things that needed that within the dollars that were available to us, and be able to prioritize those. And so the debundling also has helped us, has allowed that to happen in a very expeditious manner as well. So several different reasons, and first and foremost certainly is debundling, and we believe that's been fruitful.
Very good. Chairman, I'm just ecstatic to see progress head in that direction. If you go up there, you'll see quite a bit of dugouts and structures, and it looks like a tornado went through there. So I'm very appreciative for the work that's about to happen, and also appreciative of the extra effort on your department's part, Bill, in the debundling. I think it's a great example for us to showcase just how hard we're working to create opportunities for folks to do business with the city. Chairman, that's all I've got. I'm ready to go.
Okay, thank you very much for your help. We have on here litter policy. Now, I believe it was either Tuesday or Wednesday, I sent that out. The document, have you all had a chance to read it? And how would you like to manage this document from a standpoint of, we have Mr. Payne here for a presentation if you'd like. If you've read it, do you just have questions? How would you like to handle it, Council?
I'd like to see the presentation.
Bill, you got something for us?
I did not prepare anything specific. I have the documents and certainly could pull those up on the screen. They are written as standard operating procedures for our staff. But certainly we can be glad to go over what each one of them represents. So and I'll show these so that you can help see how these are listed. And I'm gonna make sure
while you're bringing these up, I'm going to call on Councilperson Burrs. But I have to ask her to unmute herself.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. So I read these. I don't know that the problem is with the policy. I've heard Councilman Gilbert talk about litter. I know several folks have talked about litter. I'm wondering if you guys have had a chance to look at the policies you have, Bill, to see where we might be able to do better.
These have both either been written or have been reviewed in the last within the last year as part of our reaccreditation process. The manual litter collection, it has been a long-standing practice in conjunction with Hamilton County and with the Hamilton County court system, where community service assignments have been made by the courts, and so that is something that we certainly have been able to use. The second document that was sent is a mechanical litter collection, and that actually is something new that we have added. Over as council, I'm certain is aware, there was an investment made by the city to be able to purchase the leaf collection trucks, and over the years that those leaf collection trucks have been used, we noticed that of course we were getting litter during leaf season that was being collected as part of that. There were around I guess the early part of 2019. The department did a pilot study in order to determine was that if we did not pick up leaves and if our primary target became litter with some of those trucks, would that create some damage to the parts on the truck itself, and how effective could we be at doing that? And so that pilot study was successful, and we actually have budgeted some funds from the water quality area in order to get get some of those trucks on the street. It typically is 2 trucks. It's 3 where we have the ability for drivers. We do focus on under that collection with primary routes and secondary routes first, simply because they are usually the most traveled and have the highest tendency for people, for litter to collect in those areas. And then less to a lesser degree, when we're able, we do work some local streets as well if we're able. That has been a challenge for us just because of availability of drivers within the department, and so that is a larger piece that we're dealing with on a departmental basis. But that actually is how we've been trying to improve that. Right now, as it relates to COVID, and of course the mechanical litter runs in the time when we're not collecting leaves. So when we're in leaf season, then basically whatever litter is there as part of the leaf pickup is getting collected at that point in time, and then we're running in basically through spring and summer until leaf season begins back in the fall is when we're running those others. COVID has certainly had some impact with us on availability of drivers. This year, it has also had some impact for us as well on the manual litter collection, because there had been fewer people assigned for community service by the court system, and so that has decreased the availability of those crews. So certainly, we know we have not had as many days of collection as are typical.
So do you, I guess what, if I may, what my question is this complaint driven? Or do you routinely, and I'm not talking about leaves at all, I'm talking about the paper cups and the styrofoam containers and the litter along the main roads. Does somebody routinely pick that up, or is it complaint driven? It's mainly
Sure.
the main intersections where you have panhandling, those sorts of things. And those are entrances and egresses to our community. So that's mainly what I was talking about.
Okay, certainly. I'd be glad to answer that in a couple of different responses that help address that. One is that we do take complaints. So when people call in complaints of litter, there's a general supervisor who maintains that list of streets that have had litter complaints on them, and will assign those to the Hamilton County Courts crew on the days that they are available. The mechanical litter collection is actually done by following routes. So similar to snow removal routes, there are different designated routes, and I can show those in a list if you'd like to see those, just to talk about where those are. And so those are done on a rotational basis, so that we're working our way around the city. And then finally, there are some locations, depending on where the panhandling is occurring and where where that litter may accumulate, because we're certainly aware that some of that occurs at interchanges or at entrance and exit ramps. Those entrance and exit ramps are actually responsibility of the Tennessee Department of Transportation. So we do not collect on those limited access highways or on the ramps themselves. So if it's on the local street, that our trucks would go past, there would be something in that area. But if it would require having to go down, a portion of that entrance ramp or the exit ramp, for example, because that's where it's accumulating further down and it's beyond our area of obligation. We do have a contract with TDOT. So state routes that are within the city limits, we do maintain the collection on the state routes. It is those interstate or limited access highways, 24, 27, 75, and Highway 153. All of Highway 153, even the portions that are not limited access, that are just regular surface streets. Those are not included in our contract with TDOT, and TDOT utilizes their own means and methods for litter collection on those sections.
Thank you.
What kind of coordination do we have with them though, from a leverage standpoint, Bill?
Certainly we're not dictating anything to them. If we were to receive a complaint, anytime we receive a complaint of anything that is on a state route, that is beyond our ability or beyond the terms of the maintenance contract that we have with the state, then we do refer those items over to TDOT. It's our understanding that TDOT similarly contracts with the Hamilton County courts for their community service crews as well. And so in some cases, we may be competing for similar resources, with Hamilton County courts, particularly now where the courts are not assigning as many offenders to community service.
Okay, Councilman Gilbert.
Thank you, Chair. Once you call 301, the crew does pick up the paper. The next day or the next following day is right back on the same area. Do we have something that will prohibit people from littering so much? It seems like each year it gets worse. People throwing things out their windows, on the sides. I can pick up mine today and tomorrow, something there tomorrow. So I guess it's a field question. Is something in place that will prohibit people from doing this? Because years ago, I know when I was growing up, we was too scared to throw something out because you got a $500, $250 fine. And right now, it's just like, whatever, free will, let's throw it out the window and keep moving.
The problem is one of at least being able to enforce it, to be able to find the person that threw something out of a vehicle, if it's a moving vehicle, or a person who would be there. The aspect in littering in Tennessee costs the taxpayers a whole lot of money in the long run to be able to have people that are hired to be able to go up and remove those items that are out there. If you have a fine of a city ordinance violation, that is simply a $50 fine. There are greater fines under state law than there are in the city ordinance here. And I believe it does go up to $500, but it's still catching that person doing that at the time. And it can actually result in someone losing their ability to be able to drive because of a continuing litter problem, at least under the Tennessee statutes.
So say if there's Tennessee statute, who would be the person to find someone? Would it be state or would it be local or what?
A law enforcement officer in the city could enforce those same state law violations if there's something on the littering, but it's a matter of being there at the place whenever it's occurring. That's very difficult a lot of times.
So if I'm a policeman and I got a camera on most of the cars and somebody in front of me throw a bag of trash out there, I can definitely find them.
You can find the owner of the vehicle. It's a question of whether that person was actually the person that littered. And
I'm saying I might be saying it wrong. If I'm a policeman if you in front of me and I'm a cop and I have a camera on my car and you throw something out the window, that camera should pick it up. So I can actually pull you over and give you a ticket, right?
If you've observed a law violation, yes, sir, at that point in time, and your evidence would be based upon the video that you got in your own personal viewing.
Because it's getting worse. I don't know what we can do about it, but it is getting worse.
Yes.
All right, I see Councilman Ledford, and we got to sort of move this to a close pretty soon because I don't want to shut out Councilman Ogilvy's attempt at a committee meeting today also.
No, sir, we don't want to do that. So I'll make it quick. Bill, do we have a liaison dedicated to working, or as part of their job description, working with Hamilton County as part of the litter pickup, or is that just whoever draws the short straw and reaches out and coordinates with them? That's the first question. The second part is probably for Phil. Phil, everybody's got a camera nowadays.
Yes.
Everybody just go on YouTube. You can see anything you want. People throwing out trash is getting Councilman Gilbert's 100% correct. Even on, let's say in a certain district, maybe with a 4 on it, on a certain road called East Brainerd Road. Once a month, there's 1,000 or more real estate magazines on their way to recycling. I don't know, but they're all over East Brainerd Road. And when I see it, I have no idea who to call. Well, I know who to call, but you know, what happens, it just dissipates into the world, I guess. But can we look into, here's my question for you. This is both of this could be offline. Can we look into state? Can we look into what's needed? Because I mean, Councilman Gilbert's right. I've heard other of my colleagues talk about, you know, if there's no repercussions, then it's just a free for all. And that's the wrong attitude to have. And, you know, this $50 thing is just, someone's got to go to state and fix that up. I don't know. That's ridiculous. But can we look at more into that and get some information on what the state will actually allow us to do? Because if there's no penalty, then we're not really serving our citizens. We need to look at that.
Yes, sir. I'll send you the copy of the statute here that
Okay.
at least says what can be done.
Fair enough. Thank you. And Bill, you can get back with me offline on that Hamilton County question. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any more questions for Mr. Payne about anything? I don't see any. If that's the case, then I am going to go ahead and adjourn Public Works and Transportation and move it over to Councilman Oglesby for Economic and Community Development. Take over, sir.
Thank you, Councilman Mitchell. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second. Okay, no objections. We will move on. I'm going to flip the script a little bit so we can make sure we have appropriate time for our presentation. So at this time, I'm going to move on to the Alco Properties presentation for over in District 9. So I saw Thomas Robinson here, Madam Clerk, and I'm sure someone else may be here in support. If you can bring them on, we can get this thing started so we'll be able to have enough time to rest before we go into our 6 o'clock session. I see a hand.
Afternoon. We've got
Mr. Burbank. Okay, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I know that Berkeley Burbank and Mark Smith were also in the queue with me.
Okay. Hey, okay. All right, gentlemen, thank you for coming. Hey, Mark, I ain't seen you in a while.
Mr. Chairman, good to see you. Good to see you,
Good to
members.
see you. Yes, sir. All right, is there a presentation that goes with this? You like to share your screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Chairman Oglesby, thank you. Chairman Henderson, Councilwoman Coonrod, this project's in your district. We appreciate meeting with you. My name is Thomas Robinson with Alco Management. I'm the project manager for the Battery Heights preservation, and I'll present this pilot request. Berkeley Burbank is our company's CEO, and he's on the line. And Mark Smith from Miller Martin is our attorney, and he's here as well. Battery Heights Apartments is a 142-unit mixed income apartment community on Campbell Street in District 9, Councilwoman Coonrod's district. It is 16 one-bedroom apartments, 112 two-bedroom apartments, and 14 three-bedroom apartments. And we're proposing a preservation renovation transaction of this. And we're coming before the council to ask for your support of our request for a pilot. We're seeking your support for a pilot in line with the residential housing pilot program. We would qualify for a 10-year fixed pilot followed by a 4-year ramp up for a 14-year agreement. We would seek to freeze the city taxes at the pre-development level that are at the property today. We are asking the county to freeze their general fund taxes at the pre-development level, and recognizing that the county's school fund will increase to the post-development level. We anticipate that the value of the city pilot is just under $800,000 for the 14-year period, which averages out over that term to $56,000 per year. The county pilot is worth about $505,000 or $37,500 per year. But we anticipate an increase in school funding by about $300,000 over the term of the agreement, which is $25,000 per year over the first 10 years. And then the gap between what it would be and what it is shrinks during that, that bridge. So this is a significant request from us to you, and it's one that makes this project feasible, and it is, critically important to our project. Alco Management is a 50-year-old company based in Memphis, Tennessee, and we are almost 100% focused on affordable apartment communities. We've been in business for 50 years. We own and manage 61 affordable apartment communities like Battery Heights. 6 of those are within a 45-minute drive of Battery Heights. There's 1 in Chattanooga, 2 in Northern Georgia, and 3 in Cleveland, Tennessee. The local scale is very beneficial to the properties in that region, in that while each property has its own manager and maintenance team, one of our corporate property management leaders lives in the Chattanooga area and is able to give hands-on expertise to the team that's in place at Battery Heights and those properties that are in the region. And then redevelopment projects are what we've been focused on for the past 20 years. In the last 20 years, we've redeveloped 48 affordable apartment communities like Battery Heights, and in the process have improved the apartment homes for over 5,000 apartment homes. So we've improved the apartment homes for thousands and thousands of residents. And we've made long-term commitments to communities and to residents for affordability. And that's what we're proposing to do here. Battery Heights is unique amongst, I think, many of the projects that have probably come before the council in the past few years, in that it is a mixed income community. 60% of the apartment community benefits from a Section 8 rental assistance contract, which provides rental assistance to the lowest income residents and families in Chattanooga. Those residents will mostly be below 40% of the area median income, which is an income of $29,000 for a family of 4. Those residents pay rent based on a sliding scale based on their income, never paying more than 30% of their income for rent and utilities. And on average, we estimate that the tenant portion of the rent would be between $250 and $350 for those 88 apartment units. Then the other 40% of the apartment will be restricted to workforce housing units. Residents to qualify would need to earn below 80% of the area median income, which in Chattanooga is $58,000 for a family of 4. The rents for those apartments would be $650 for a 1-bedroom unit, $800 for a 2-bedroom unit, and $875 for a 3-bedroom unit. We'll be doing this project hopefully in conjunction with you, with HUD, with Tennessee Housing Development Agency, with investor partners, and we'll be making a 30-year commitment to these affordability levels, providing quality, affordable homes for residents in Chattanooga for a long time. Battery Heights is almost 50 years old, and this would be its first major renovation that it's had since its construction. We're budgeting a $5.5 million renovation, which is about $37,000 per apartment unit in renovation. It's not a fancy renovation. We upgrade the kitchens and the bathrooms, the wet systems of the apartment unit. So in your kitchens and your bathrooms, you'll get new flooring, new cabinets, new countertops, new plumbing fixtures, new energy efficient appliances. Your bathroom will get a new floor, a new vanity, new bathing facility, new shower facility, new tile. And then the rest of the apartment will get lighting upgrades, new appliances, in a lot of things that are behind the scenes, your HVAC equipment, new energy efficient water heaters, new low flow plumbing, water saving devices, new insulation. And then on the exterior, we replace roofs, we replace old windows with more energy efficient windows, siding, and do a number of site upgrades to make the property look a little nicer and feel a little nicer. So I like to say that this is it's a pretty vanilla but quality renovation. We're not doing anything fancy, but we're doing all the work that needs to be done to allow Battery Heights to provide good quality, safe homes for families for the next 30 years. I think that Alco is a resident-focused company, and I think that this is a resident-focused project, and I'm excited about that. The first thing is maybe a little counterintuitive in that we're proposing an occupied renovation. That means the residents stay in place while we work around them. And I think that truly is resident-focused, because what that means is that the families that have lived at Battery Heights are going to be the ones to enjoy a renovated Battery Heights. They're not going to have to disperse across the community and uproot and lose their school system and their path to work. They're going to get to stay in place and have a much better place to live at the end of the construction period. An occupied rehab is certainly not always convenient for the resident. So of our 48 redevelopment projects that we've done, they've all followed this same policy. And we have contractors, property management staff that are focused on the key ingredient to a successful project, which is strong communication. That means that you call a resident and you say, on Tuesday, we're going to come in and replace your water heater. So on Tuesday, that is a little inconvenient to have people in your house, in your apartment, replacing something. At the end of the day, it's an improvement. The same thing might happen 3 weeks later when we come in to replace kitchen cabinets and countertops. It's inconvenient during the time, and it's a much larger improvement. So we look at an occupied rehab as months worth of small inconveniences with major improved results at the end. Anecdotally, our experience is that many residents start to get excited about what their apartment's going to look like and feel like. And then some residents are going to be annoyed. And so we work really hard to communicate well with those residents that are excited and those that are annoyed to make sure that we're providing them a good service, a lot of respect, and giving them a good place to live. Beyond the renovation, Battery Heights is an exciting opportunity for us in that they've had a 20-year resident services program. They were one of the first subsidized apartments in Tennessee to put this program in place. They've got a service coordinator, Miss Paula, who's worked at the property for 20 years, providing help with homework to young children, art classes, partnering with different nonprofits to bring meals to the site, to bring activities to the site, running a computer lab for residents and families. And we're excited about being able to renovate the space that she operates in and continuing to build on the that she's developed so that we can provide services to the families that call Battery Heights home. Beyond that, so those upgrades of community space, we'll also see a new fitness center. We'll upgrade that computer lab, upgrade the exterior outside amenities like the playground, picnic area. And generally, again, it's not a fancy renovation. Our projects shouldn't be on the cover of a magazine, but it is a place that people can come home to from after school and after work and be happy to call it home. That is a very short summary of what we're hoping to accomplish, but we really do want and need your help, and we want to be good partners to the city of Chattanooga and help you fulfill your goal of providing affordable housing to your residents. And we think we're going to be good partners with you, and Berkeley and I and Mark could answer any questions that you have either today in this meeting or offline between now and the next meeting. So I do want to turn it back over and open it up for questions.
Thank you, Thomas. Councilwoman Coonrod, if you can release the screen, we can. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I'm excited about the project, because we do need to maintain affordable housing and make sure that, you know, they having to rehab it to look good, quality housing. I shared my concerns with you over the call. Is that my concern was that I just didn't want it to look like how Bayberry Apartments is or ended up. I mean, we did all the enhancements and we still, you know, it really didn't do much help. But hopefully we can maintain this property to be people that work, I guess call it workforce housing, people that are working that's living in the housing, or that kind of thing, and not just everybody making the same income to live at this community. But thank you for your investments in thinking about District 9.
Thank you, Councilwoman Coonrod. Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. You know, I definitely support Councilwoman Coonrod to the fullest. I just like what she said about Bayberry, and truly sorry, Mark and Thomas, I haven't been able to talk to you guys offline, but just with the Bayberry, some of the issues that we run into with people, it just seemed like we didn't get enough bang for our buck. A lot of the apartments, like, it's no follow-up afterwards when the things you say you would do with the cabinets and the stuff and the remodeling of the home. We see the siding, you see the roof, and you see the air units outside, but I get phone calls from constituents that say their apartment didn't get renovated, or they still having leaks or having issues. Me and Councilman Oglesby had to go up to the Overlook, the Ridgeway apartments several times because people who lived up there, they were being transitioned, or they were there when people were coming in working, and the workers were just really disrespectful and not courteous of the people's property and stuff. So like Councilwoman Coonrod said, it's very exciting to hear about affordable housing. We all want it, and when you say affordable housing, you feel good about it, you want it, it makes it feel good. But it just seems like in the long run, we don't get the quality that's presented here right now in front of us. And I have issues with that. So that's kind of where I stand.
Thank you, Councilman Byrd. Chairman Henderson. Unmute you. Yeah, there you go, sir.
I'm trying to find the button.
Yeah.
Thank you. So one of the things I didn't hear, and I think would be very effective or helpful, I didn't hear anything about security cameras being linked to our Arctic down at the Police Service Center.
Yeah. All right. Who wants to address that?
We do. We have worked extensively with the police department in our other Chattanooga property, and are linked into the Arctic Center. I am not 100% sure, Thomas, if we have budgeted for this project to include the same type of camera system, because I don't believe that we have experienced the similar level of crime and disruption at the property. This is not a property that we currently are involved with, but that's certainly something we can look into.
Well, and I don't want to step into Councilwoman Coonrod's pond, but I think that's something that probably needs to be written into the pilot agreement. That would be very helpful. How do you guarantee a 30-year commitment?
We're making land use restricted covenants with THDA that are filed with the state that say that we have to follow certain rules of affordability that stay with the property of deed restriction.
For 30 years.
Yes, sir. It's through both the tax credit program and the bond program. So both types of financing come with a deed restriction.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilman Gilbert.
Thank you, Chair. Based on what I heard from Councilman Byrd and Councilwoman Coonrod, how are you going to ensure that the same thing that happened at the other apartments won't happen in this area?
there's one primary difference, which Councilwoman Coonrod was referring to. At Bayberry Apartments, it is 100% subsidized property. And so 100% of the residents there benefit from the Section 8 contract. And so, and again, I don't want to put words into your mouth, Councilwoman Coonrod, but as I think most of you are aware, those are the families in Chattanooga who really have the most limited means and the most limited resources. And of course, they are faced with all of the problems that low-income families face. And so at Battery Heights Apartments, it is roughly 60% Section 8 and 40% non-subsidized. And so the property does, as if you drive through today in its current state, it has a little bit different feel to it, that it is more of, those are workforce housing is kind of the industry term that we use. And I think that's what Chair Oglesby referred to. So that is really, many of the issues are dependent on the actions and the behavior of the residents. So as our management staff work very, very hard to respond to work orders, and we have resident service coordinators on staff. Of course, we have full-time maintenance there, and our community managers work with the local community and churches to try to bring as many services as we can. But we by no means are trying to say that we can, through providing good quality, affordable housing, we cannot address all the social ills that low-income families, low-income communities address. But we try our hardest to address that one major issue of good quality housing. So again, we can't promise to have, to solve all those problems, but we'll do our best to address what is within our control.
What you're saying is on the new project in Battery Heights, you're going to not have the same issues as far as the workers being rude to the clients, or some of the cabinets or whatever won't be done correctly, correct?
Well, certainly, Councilman Byrd, I think, was referring to another property that similar that he developed, and definitely, as Thomas said in his presentation, we do have residents. It is inconvenient for our residents, and we're not trying to say it's not inconvenient. If someone is coming into your home and doing work, it is inconvenient. Now, of course, from our perspective, and certainly from your perspective, it's unacceptable if the workers that are coming into your home are disrespecting you as an individual. And so we do work closely with our contractors. And as Thomas said, we have done a number of these properties. And there are always issues. And so again, I'm not saying that someone won't, there will be people that are upset, and we understand that, and we try to have systems in place, and we try to communicate as clearly as we can. So again, we work hard to make it go as smoothly as possible and try to notify residents when we'll be in their unit, the work that we'll be doing. And certainly our intention is to do the work that we say we're going to do. Councilmember Byrd, I'll be happy to get together with you. And, again, if you're getting calls from constituents, we're happy to hear about that. And I know that Benita out on site is very responsive to resident concerns, and I think you know her well. So we're happy to talk more about that if you like.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Gilbert. If that's all, Councilwoman Burge, I saw your hand up there.
Yeah, thank you. So let me just clarify something. The other property that you referred to in town that you did is Bayberry?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I'm trying to figure out if I heard my colleague correctly, what does Section 8 have to do with construction that may be inferior? Or maybe I misunderstood Councilman Byrd.
If Chair, if you mind, if I could clarify for.
No, not at all, Councilman. Please do.
It's just Councilwoman Burrs, the partnership. Like I said, Mr. Berkeley is a wonderful businessman. He's a great guy. We've talked several times. And Miss Bonita there is a wonderful woman who manages the place. But just the partnership, when constituents will call and say some issues were happening, I can get with Miss Bonita and she'll try to get it fixed or try to get things going. But just the communication, it was no accountability to me to where I can hold someone accountable and say, hey, we gave you this pilot, make sure you go get this done. Or if someone is calling me, get over there and get this taken care of. It was just, I can't do that. So, you hear about the clawbacks and the things that we need in here when problems are occurring. And I just think that the system is not strong enough, Councilwoman Burrs, for me, because the work that I just think that we interacted with, it didn't work out for me. And then on a different property, like Mr. Berkeley said, that me and Councilman Oglesby was dealing with, that whole situation about working while the people are in there. People had flies coming in their house, bugs, because you had holes where they had to enter the air units and stuff. And it just was a major issue. And the young lady who was overseeing it, she was just having so many problems because the people who live there just kept bombarding her with problems. And so I just think we need to create a better system of all of us working together just to have that accountability. And so that's what I'm saying.
So just to clarify, there were no problems with the quality of construction or the quality of materials used?
I didn't see that physically myself. It was several tenants who lived there that voiced that to me, but I didn't go see it myself. They voiced it to me, and I voiced it to Mr. Berkeley's manager, Miss Bonita, and she came and took care of it, and the person was taken care of.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman Burrs. Is there any other further questions or comments? Okay, gentlemen, thank you so much for your presentation. I think we're moving ahead, and at the very least, we can take what we've learned from the past and make it better moving forward to the future. So this is actually something, and I know Councilwoman Coonrod is excited about it, and I'm excited for her. And I'm just looking forward to the next steps in this process. So
thank you very much. And again, I think we've reached out to each of you. If any of you have any individual questions or would like to have time with us one-on-one, we'd be delighted to speak with each of you. And thank you for those of you who've already set aside some time for us.
okay, thank you, sir. And I'm sure we'll be reaching out to you. You can almost count on that. All right. That concludes this part. If there's no further questions or comments, I want to take a few minutes. Donna Williams, our Economic and Community Development Administrator, brought to my attention of a new funding opportunity from the THDA. So if you can bring Donna in to address this right quick before we complete our agenda items for this afternoon. Donna, there she is.
Thank you, Chair Oglesby, I appreciate it. I know you all are running out of time, so I wanted to very briefly tell you that on September, pardon me, September the 29th, you all approved our department accepting $375,000 from THDA for the ESG COVID CARES Act money. We got a call last week from THDA asking if we would like to increase the amount of money that we were to receive, and we said yes, we would. We found out yesterday that that amount has been increased by $62,500. However, THDA is requiring us to have the agreement signed by Mayor Burke and sent to them no later than December the 21st. So that means that we will need your permission, which we're hopeful to put on the agenda next Tuesday, to change the amount from $375 to $437,500 for the ESG COVID allocation. Sorry for the fire drill, but this is as soon as we could tell you because we just found out yesterday.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Or I guess because this just came up so quickly, we may need a little time to absorb it. But there is a time reference, and next week is our last meeting before our Christmas recess. So, Chairman Henderson, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move that we put it on next week's agenda with the consent of the rest of the council.
I would second that.
Fine with me.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, Attorney Noblet.
Yes,
you
sir.
got this? Okay.
Yes, sir. Got it. We'll add
Great,
it.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Beautiful.
I kind of figured they would, Donna. All right, thank you so
We're
much.
excited for the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah. The blessings keep rolling in.
In some ways, yes.
Okay. In some ways, okay. Be positive. Be positive. All right. Thank you very much. Now, Madam Clerk, let's move on to our Economic and Community Development Committee agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes if I hadn't already done it? Yeah. It's been moved and properly second, and if there's no objection, Madam Clerk, please read resolution for tonight, 7A.
A resolution considering short-term vacation rental application number 20 STVR 00136 for property located at 1710 Underwood Street.
Okay, I'm sure we have a presentation for that tonight. Let's go with 7B.
A resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a lease agreement when substantially the form attached with Missionary Ridge Neighborhood Association, Inc. for a term of 1 year with the option to renew for 3 additional terms for 1 year each for the use of 36 Sheridan Avenue, identified as tax parcel number 156EB001.01 for the amount of $1 per year.
You good, Councilwoman Coonrod?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Mr. Chair, you see my hand?
I do now, sir, Mr. Chairman.
I want to go back one. Mr. Attorney, is it on the short-term vacation appeals, is that 5 minutes per?
5 minutes per side is what you've been using. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for getting that clarification. Now let's move on to Tuesday, December the 15th, resolution 7A.
A resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a lease and operating agreement with Creeks Bend Golf Club, Inc. in substantially the form attached for the lease and operation of Moccasin Bend Golf Course at 381 Moccasin Bend Road, identified as tax parcel number 145001, with a minimum monthly payment of $12,500 and the implementation of a capital improvement plan for a term of 10 years with the option to renew for 2 additional terms of 5 years each.
Okay, I see no hands and Councilman Mitchell is not available. So let's go to 7B.
A resolution to make certain findings relating to APP Battery Partners LLLP to delegate certain authority to the Health, Educational, and Housing Facility Board, and to authorize the mayor to enter into and execute an agreement for payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes for property located at 3401 Campbell Street, Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Okay, seeing no hand, let's move on to 7C.
A resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract for sale and purchase in substantially the form attached with James Lindsay Grizzard III and Evan Paul Green for the purchase of 906 Shallowford Road, identified as tax parcel number 147GL002, and property on Gillespie Road, identified as tax parcel number 147GL016, for the amount of $47,000 with earnest money in the amount of $2,500 deposited with Jones Title Agency, Inc. And after a successful quiet title action to execute all documents related to the transaction with closing fees for an amount not to exceed $1,300 for a total amount not to exceed $48,300.
Okay, and finally, let's move on to 7D.
A resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract for sale and purchase in substantially the form attached with Rise Chattanooga formerly known as Jazzanuga, for the purchase of 842 Gillespie Road, identified as tax parcel number 147GL001, for the amount of $37,500, with earnest money in the amount of $1,500, deposited with Jones Title Agency, Inc., and executed all documents related to the transaction with closing fees for an amount not to exceed $1,300, for a total amount not to exceed $38,800.
Okay. Okay, that, I see no hands, and that I see there's no other business before us. Mr. Chairman, if we have no attorney-client, we can be adjourned until 6 o'clock.
That sounds good to me, sir.
Commission, yes, sir.